Hey there, everyone. Hope everyone's having a good week so far, and just going to talk about the weather across the country for a few minutes. I'm going to address what's going on across Colorado. We do have a system of interest pushing in later tomorrow night and one later this weekend. Also going to talk a little bit about severe weather threat across parts of the southeast and Gulf Coast Saturday and the Sunday. But just taking a look at current water vapor imagery, you can see really just an impressive slug of moisture again hitting California, bringing them some impressive rains and some heavy snow to the Sierra Nevadas and Cascades, Portland, Oregon, even eastern Washington. They've had a rough last 48 hours, seeing some freezing rain. You get these easterly winds out of the Columbia Gorge, River Valley. And as you can see here, we've warmed up quite a bit. Winds have shifted more to southerly direction rather than straight out of the east or southeast. So good news there. Hopefully we can melt away some of that ice accumulation. I know it's just, they're not used to it up there, and freezing rain is always just a disaster, and I'm sure many of you across the central and southern plains, after experiencing that ice storm last weekend, can agree with that. Anyways, yeah, as you can see, just across northeastern Colorado, currently temperatures mainly in the 20s and 30s. Pretty mild evening, actually, for mid to late January. Nothing too out of the ordinary. We hit, looking at just our current observations and what we saw today, got up to 11.1 degrees Celsius today at DIA. I believe that's 52 degrees Fahrenheit. So yeah, good, maybe 8 degrees above our average high, which is 44 for this time of year. So another fairly mild day for the books. Tomorrow will be the same. Yeah, just back to the surface observations, you could just see generally winds are out of the south or southeast here. Few northerly winds across parts of Wyoming and yeah, Cheyenne, Laramie. A little bit chillier up there, but really nothing too remarkable to talk about. Yeah, just looking at our 0Z sounding for this evening, pretty just dry, 0.16 inches of precipitable water, northwesterly flow at the surface. Really nothing too remarkable, just a very dry, kind of boring sounding for us. Just going to look at kind of along the Gulf Coast. You can see kind of starting to set up a little bit of a warm sector here. Dew points in the upper 60s. This is, I think, Slidell, Louisiana. Yeah, just some warm advection, veering wind profile down at the surface here, even starting to get some cape and some moistening down the low levels. Even go down further into South Texas. Good old load. Brownsville, kind of same thing. I'm actually a little bit drying at the surface with a 60-degree dew point, but looks like more almost an offshore flow there with that northeasterly wind at the surface. Yeah, we'll talk more about severe weather in just a couple of minutes. Taking a look at current radar, just, yeah, impressive rain and snow across Northern California, Oregon, Washington. Rain in the lowlands now, but snow in the mountains definitely. Eastern Washington, I believe, Yakima, Wenatchee, they even saw some freezing rain. Pretty uncommon for the Pacific Northwest, and especially in the lee of the Cascades, not something you usually see. Then some showers and thunderstorms across parts of the Texas coastal plain into Louisiana and up into Mississippi, along the Mississippi River Valley. In Colorado, fairly quiet right now. Not too much to talk about. That will change a little bit tomorrow night. Not a lot of snow coming our way tomorrow night. I'm not terribly excited. I'll talk about that in just a couple of minutes. The NAM isn't showing anything, the 0Z NAM. The GFS showing a little bit more, but yeah, winds just really aren't favorable for the system. I'll show that in a second. Let's see, what was I going to bring up here? Yeah, we'll just go to the current upper air pattern, and water vapor imagery kind of just talks about it a little bit. But you can see kind of a shortwave trough across much of Colorado, Kansas. You can actually see it very well in water vapor imagery. This little swirl right here. You can see another shortwave kind of pushing off the east coast. That's better defined, and you can also just see that looking at 300 millibars, kind of pushing off the eastern coast there. But yeah, really not much to talk about. Kind of just a weird, messy upper air pattern for the time being. Yeah, this is just something I find a little bit interesting. These are 700 to 500 millibar lapse rates, and the reason why I'm showing this is because this really is what drives a lot of our severe, not drives a lot of our severe weather in the United States, but it certainly helps it. So what happens here is we get these, what we get called an elevated mix layer. So over the elevated terrain, so places like Albuquerque, Denver, over the mountains, you know, where surface is at 850, 700 millibars. it's higher than say down at Houston or Little Rock or Oklahoma City. So we get these steeper lapse rates. Air is very dry, so we're not really releasing much latent heat into the atmosphere. So we get those dry adiabatic lapse rates, so very steep lapse rates. And when we get westerly winds, which is what we commonly see with just synoptic waves, synoptic scale systems, they tend to advect or push those lapse rates further east over the lowlands. So we actually have what we call an elevated mixed layer. So we have steeper dry adiabatic lapse rates atop a moist layer at the surface, so moisture coming up from the Gulf of Mexico or wherever. So we have very, very cold, steep lapse rate air, dry air, atop very warm and moist air. And as we know, warm, moist air is less dense than cold, dry air. So that generates buoyancy, or CAPE, and CAPE is a measure of instability. And that's exactly what we're going to be seeing this weekend. Across much of Louisiana and Texas. And the reason why this is actually pretty unusual is usually when we see kind of convective events, mesoscale convective systems push further east across Arkansas, Louisiana, kind of just moisten the column a lot, because typically we generate mesoscale convective systems further west over Oklahoma, Kansas, even West Texas. But yeah, we're not going to contaminate much of the profile in this case. So we're going to maintain those steeper lapse rates in the mid-levels further east. So you can actually see some of the elevated mixed layer by these yellows and greens. These are 700 to 500 millibar lapse rates in the 7.5 to 8.5 degrees Celsius range. Dry adiabatic lapse rate is 10 degrees Celsius, and moist adiabatic lapse rate, I believe, is 5.5 degrees Celsius per kilometer. So these are pretty steep lapse rates, and as you can see, we have westerly flow. I believe this is just the mean wind between 700 and 500 millibars, 40, 50 knots. And you can see it vects further east. And it actually makes it further east into Louisiana and parts of Mississippi and East Texas in the Saturday and Sunday. And then we start to see some of that convection kind of moisten the column and moisten those profiles in the mid-levels. But yeah, and I can actually just show you here. I'm going to pull up a forecast sounding from the 12Z GFS. 0Z GFS. This is for Baton Rouge, Louisiana. This is at 19Z on Sunday, so Saturday afternoon. And as you can see, we have that moist boundary layer, dew points in the mid-60s. And then you can see we have that steepening, steep mid-level lapse rates here. And nice thing about N-Sharp is it actually just reads it out for you. 700, 500 millibar lapse rate, 7.3 degrees Celsius per kilometer. So pretty steep. This is what we call a loaded gun profile. So moist layer at the surface, and then we have steep lapse rates atop that, and then that generates some CAPE, which can be denoted by this dashed line here. So yeah, dry mid-levels, and also you can see here on the right, theta E decreasing with height. That's called convective instability. So theta E decreasing with height, that's what it gives us. Theta E is just a measure of moisture, and essentially what it is if you condense all the moisture out of an air parcel and then lower it down to 1,000 millibars. So we're releasing latent heat, and then we are compressing it adiabatically down to the surface. So yeah, I mean, thermodynamically, this is very impressive in the southeast. Low-level shear is a little bit more of the question of whether or not we will see a big outbreak. Speed shear, definitely. I mean, we have a pretty strong jet overhead. This looks like 300 millibars. We got 75 knot flow out of the southwest, so significant this time of year. Supercell shouldn't be a problem. More just will we see a tornado threat, or more of just a damaging wind threat, and lots of heavy rain, of course, with that moisture. Anyways, I'm going off too long about severe weather. Let's talk a little bit about what's going on in Colorado. So you can see there's that short wave. This is just the analysis hour from the 12Z GFS. Kind of just that short wave lingering. Brought us some clouds, maybe some high clouds across eastern Colorado today. Nothing really too exciting to talk about. And then we start to see our next system of interest push in into Friday. You can see kind of a negatively tilted shortwave there. Really not excited about snow chances here too much. Just looking at 700 millibar winds. This is from the GFS. Thursday night, tomorrow night, and Friday. Really no upslope signatures. Just kind of weak flow all around. So yeah, I mean, maybe it'll bring us a little bit of some rain and or snow, but not terribly excited. The real story of interest comes late this weekend, Sunday into Monday. And I'll just show you that in just a second here. But yeah, you can see kind of weak ridging builds back in, shortwave ridging builds back in time for the weekend. So should dry out Saturday, Sunday. Temperatures kind of average, nothing too spectacular, maybe low to mid 40s for highs. Yeah, so enjoy the quiet weather while it lasts. Then this is when things start to get interesting. This is Sunday. You can see a close low starts to form over Texas, New Mexico, Oklahoma, southeastern Colorado. Again, a little bit further south than what we'd like to see. Again, still a few days out. Not going to get too hung up on this exact solution here. I actually haven't been monitoring the trends too much recently. I've been pretty busy, but I will be keeping an eye on this. Kind of a similar, not digging as far south as what we saw earlier this week, but somewhat similar setup. But yeah, maybe some snow for Denver Sunday night, Monday it looks like, maybe into Monday night. Let's see here. Yeah, and then pattern looks to remain fairly active through the beginning of next week, and that looks like we have some bridging build in to the west and to Seattle. So all the AMS people, all the meteorologists out at AMS next week will be happy because it's not raining in Seattle in January, which is quite a rare thing to experience. So enjoy it. I'm jealous. Things look to remain rather frothy and cool in Colorado. I'll hopefully do an update next week. Yeah, thanks for watching, and yeah, stay tuned.